This show is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for all your support in the production of this Career in STEM series.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Careers in STEM series. I'm Akul Gunukula and I'm a rising junior at Troy High School.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanisha Panchal and I'm a rising senior at Troy High School.
We are FRC Team 226, the Hammerheads from Troy, Michigan, consisting of over 100 high school students from Troy High School.
We've been competing in the first robotics competition since 1999, and this Career in STEM series is a bi-monthly show occurring on the first and third Thursdays of every month. During these episodes, we interview an individual working in the STEM field and learn about their experiences.
Also a reminder to put your questions in the chat and we'll answer them throughout the interview. Today our guest is Reanna John. She received her electrical engineering degree from Wayne State. Reanna is currently a telematics system engineer at GM. For this series, we'll have a 40-minute interview period where we will be answering questions from the chat periodically throughout the interview.
Awesome. So, Reanna, our first question for you is, what activities did you do in high school? This could be either your first robotics experience or any other clubs that you were a part of.
Yeah, so I was in marching band. I also did concert band and symphonic band. I was in peer mediation, and I was on executive board for our Indian Student Association, and I was also dance team captain for our Bollywood team. And then, of course, I was also in robotics. I started my junior year. I did it for junior and senior year, and honestly, all of my experiences in high school really kind of molded where I got to now, and robotics was definitely a big part of that.
So, speaking of robotics, could you talk a little bit more about what you did on the team and how it helped you?
Yeah, so I was on the business side of things, and I spent a lot of time learning from the people around me, honestly. There were a lot of experienced people, especially since I hadn't done it in middle school and elementary school. There were a lot of people helping me along the way, and I learned a lot from the people around me. It was a really good experience.
How did the skills that you've learned in robotics kind of help you when you went off to college or even in your professional life right now?
Yeah, so I think in robotics, it was a lot of working with other people. And kind of anywhere you go, any interviews that I've been in, any jobs that I've had, a big emphasis is placed on how well you can work with other people. So being in robotics, kind of working to a singular goal, meeting new people and being able to connect with them. Those are all skills that helped me a lot throughout my college experience and my professional experience.
So what do you recommend to students to do to find out more about jobs that they're interested in or they're looking forward to?
Yeah, so for jobs specifically, definitely attend the career fair that happens every year. Usually there's one in the fall and one in the winter, and companies will come out and kind of, set up, and you can kind of explore companies that you wouldn't have heard of beforehand. Definitely check out a lot of stuff online and use your contacts. I mean, there's a lot of people in robotics, alumni, and I feel like we're all really here to help. So if you kind of know someone who graduated, or, you can reach out to people who you've had in previous shows or myself and ask them for their advice, ask them what companies they've been at, what they liked, and their suggestions too.
Yeah. So just going back to your high school experiences, what APs did you take and how did they kind of help you when you went on to college and focused on electrical engineering?
Yeah, so I was in a few APs throughout sophomore, junior, and senior year. And I mean, it's pretty clear the level of expectations that you have in AP classes are a lot higher than your regular classes. And the workload is, of course, much bigger. So honestly, that helped me kind of develop a work ethic that I wouldn't have had necessarily had to push myself into. The AP classes that you take in high school they are similar to the workload that you're going to get in college. Of course, it's going to be one step higher with college, and the structure is different and everything, but AP classes do kind of help you and gear you up for the workload level that will be in college, especially for STEM majors. It's of course a lot of work. It's a lot of background information that you'll need to know. For electrical engineering specifically, of course, it goes through Calc 1, 2, 3, differential equations, and then linear. And every single one of those classes relies almost directly on what you learn in Calc 1, So those AP classes, they are a building block on stuff that you will eventually need to refer back to.
So how did your interests in high school in different topics change, or were they similar when you went to college?
So I would say school-wise and learning-wise and knowledge-wise, I wasn't necessarily sure what I wanted to do in college. I kind of considered engineering because I had a little exposure to it because of robotics. And it was a good path for me to go down. I would definitely recommend it. Because I was exposed to robotics and the engineering and business side, everything that works together to create a team, it kind of showed me the possibilities of my own career, of what it could look like. And kind of choosing that and sticking with it, starting off in college, ended up being a really, really good decision for me.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you also had a concentration in computer engineering with your major in electrical engineering. Why those two fields, and what made you decide that that was the combination that you were looking for?
Yeah, so electrical specifically, it kind of interested me a little bit more than the other fields of engineering. But electrical, of course, it's mostly hardware, and the world is kind of moving to a more software driving kind of scope. So why I chose the computer concentration out of my three options, which was biomedical, computer, and electrical, is because I think it's always good to kind of diversify your experience and kind of tuck that software experience under your belt too. Having that actually really set me apart in the interviews that I was attending, and for my job prospects too, having that software background on top of the hardware knowledge that I had was really, really beneficial.
So how can people determine what type of engineering that they want to go into, since there's quite a few options there?
Yeah, good question. So I think being in robotics, it's a really, really good opportunity to kind of look around, see what your friends are doing, see what, opportunities that you have, and really see it, experience it, and see if that's something that you like specifically. I feel like with robotics, there were people in every single, sphere. So, having that opportunity to kind of explore all of those areas, definitely take that chance, definitely, push yourself out of your comfort zone and kind of gather as much knowledge as you can before you decide. And then once you decide, kind of stick to it and keep pushing forward. Of course, STEM, it's notoriously kind of more challenging, a little bit more difficult, but everybody has it in them. And the key is to just take something and really go for it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think that's something that I've also been struggling with lately. So that helped. And also, I wanted to ask if it's beneficial for the long run if we combine some sort of a scientific background with the technical background. So majoring in something like biomedical engineering, does it really matter in the long run, or is it all just the same?
I would say it definitely a little bit of both. If you are particularly passionate about a certain area of engineering and you know that you want to get a job in it and you want your career to go exactly in that direction, then it's very important that you choose a major that aligns with your personal interests. But the good thing about engineering is that kind of no matter what your background, you can push yourself into different directions. just because you have an engineering background. You know, if you're more into the business side of things, having that technical background will provide you with a lot more opportunities in an engineering world than just having maybe a business degree and wanting to do something related to the both of them. You know, so the answer is kind of yes and no. I would definitely say that your major in college is important for your background technical knowledge that you kind of need to know generally for your job. But for the most part, you will learn a lot once you start a specific job, once you start an internship or a co-op or whatever it might be. Each role is very specific, and you'll gain a lot of specific experiences that you definitely wouldn't be able to get in the classroom. So yes and no to your question.
So with someone with your type of major, what kind of professional opportunities are available?
Yeah, so the professional opportunities, I would say, kind of fall a little bit in two categories. So with electrical engineering, you could be working on actual products. So me being at GM, I'm working on the electronic components for all these different modules within the car. Of course, electricity powers so much of the car. You could be working on like handheld devices, you know, your cell phone. You could be at Amazon or Google as an electrical engineer. And then you could take it kind of like in a larger sense, you could be working on high voltage power systems. So you could be down at DTE or across the country. The power grids, they need their electrical engineers to be working on their system. And you could also kind of be in that same realm, you know, you working on building infrastructure, which kind of combines electrical and mechanical stuff too. So kind of two big areas, and they both kind of need the same fundamentals. And yeah, so they kind of fall into two areas and everything in between too.
Yeah. So just going back to your college experience, what kind of organizations or activities did you participate in at Wayne?
Yeah, so for my major specific extracurriculars, I was in Society of Women Engineers, so that's called SWE, and then IEEE, which is Institute of Electronics and Electrical Engineers. And then apart from that, I was in some like more fun extracurriculars. I was in a sorority. I was on a dance team. I was in ISA, so Indian Student Association too.
So in college, is it easy to switch between different degrees, or like, how does it work? Just curious.
So we kind of all start off with a few main courses that everyone has to take. And then as you kind of work through those, it gets a lot more specific. So I would say the overlap is there to a certain extent, maybe within your first semester, maybe within your first year, but past that point, you're really doing major specific classes. And if you were to switch after that point, of course, it's definitely possible. And that option is really, really good for some people, for a lot of people. But that overlap, of course, you know, is not necessarily there after a certain point. So it's a little bit easier when you're switching between engineering degrees because our basic engineering classes, physics, chemistry, all of that stuff is mostly the same. But again, after a certain point, it does branch off and you will kind of have to be going back a little bit if you are switching between degrees, specifically in engineering and out of it too.
So I don't know if this is true, but some people have told me that once you go out and get a job in your professional life, even if it's not necessarily what you majored in, the employer will still be willing to take you solely because you have that engineering background and they know that you're hardworking and are intelligent. So they'll still be more willing to accept you as opposed to if you hadn't been a STEM major. Is that something that you've noticed too, or is it just a myth?
That is definitely true. I have been in interviews. I've talked to people, and as soon as they hear that I have a degree in engineering, it's very clear their interest in me as a candidate grows. And like you mentioned, it doesn't necessarily matter what degree you get within STEM or within engineering specifically. If you have like a certain path in mind, you can make it happen with engineering. The engineering world, STEM world is huge, and there's room for everyone. So, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot more than you think. So yes, I would say that that's true.
So in college, what internships and co-ops did you take?
Yeah, so I started at Denso. I applied to a position. Here's another tip. When you're looking at job applications, they will have sometimes a really long list of requirements or like coding languages that you have to know. Apply for it anyway. You never know what can happen. There's not going to be one person that has every single person checked off on that list. It's kind of just like a suggestion or something that would be nice, but it's definitely not a full end all requirement that you need to have everything on that job application list as your background or experience. So yeah, I kind of went out on a limb. I applied for a job that said sophomore and junior only. I was a freshman at the time, and I went into the interview, and there was one manager and one HR lady, and they were both sitting and interviewing me. And it was pretty clear they were looking for someone very, very software oriented. And I had not taken a software class, a coding class in college at all. This was 2 months into my college in general. So I had no real experience. And I got a call the next day, and the HR lady said, I think we kind of knew that this wasn't a good fit for you, but I really liked you as a candidate, and I think you would be awesome for this other position that I had. So she submitted me, even though it was almost this application process for this other position was almost over. She still submitted me. She talked to the managers because she really liked me during my interview. And I interviewed for that position, and I got it. So, it just depends. It's not a set path for anybody. But yeah, so I got my first position that was working for Denso, which is an automotive supplier. And I was working for the Ford quality team. So I started off in quality working for Ford through Denso, of course. And then I interviewed for a couple different positions within Denso again. And then I rotated into infotainment. So at first I was working for Honda's in-vehicle infotainment. And then I kind of expanded my role, and then I was supporting a lot more products. So it was the Ford meter cluster, Toyota meter cluster, the Honda HUD, so the heads-up display on the car, and then Honda in-vehicle infotainment. And those are like the positions that I had throughout all of college.
So do you have any advice for gaining experience in a certain field of work?
Yeah, I would say as an intern, the advantage that you have is that people are always willing to help you. I mean, of course, they're always willing to help you no matter what stage in your career that you're in. But you have an advantage because you can take any opportunity that you see and ask for more. If you see something that interests you, ask questions. This is a time for you to gain as much experience as you can, learn as much as you can, and just like make connections and kind of have fun with it. See what you like, see what you don't like so much, So kind of use everything as an experience. Talk to as many people as you can, and anything that interests you, ask questions about it, and kind of link up with people and kind of try to find the experts in the areas that you're looking at. And you can ask questions within your company, and people are always willing to help for the most part. Yeah.
So moving on to your profession, could you talk a little bit about what a telematic engineer does, a system engineer does?
Yeah, so I mentioned this previously just within the group of us, but let me talk a little bit about what I do at GM right now. So I'm currently in a track program. So it's it's an acronym. It's technical rotation and career knowledge. And basically what it is every 6 months, I rotate into a different position. So after 2 years or 4 rotations, I am placed into a permanent position. And right now I'm a telematics systems engineer, which basically means that I'm kind of working with a little bit of hardware, a little bit of software, and molding them together. And what I do is I work specifically on the TCP module, which is the piece of hardware that powers the OnStar module in the car. So if you're familiar with the OnStar and GM cars, that's that module. And the software that powers it is supplied to us by our supplier, LG. And what I'm doing right now is I kind of work as a liaison between GM and LG. And I help them with their testing if they need anything. We talk about their timelines. There's, of course, a lot. Good question. So
All right, so just continuing talking about your professional life right now, can you talk a little bit about what your working day is like?
yeah, so my days consist mostly of meetings and emails and troubleshooting. And when I need to, I'll head into the office for specific testing issues or if I need to look at something myself. But yeah, so like there's a lot of meetings with LG that we have. So that's our supplier. And then apart from that, team meetings and then emails, of course. But yeah, it's a mix. Of course, my rotation right now is a little bit of a mix of administrative work and then actual technical experience where I'm going in hands-on.
So on a daily basis, what technical skills do you use?
Yeah, so I would say that a lot of my technical background and knowledge has come in handy from my co-op experience. So in infotainment, even though there are a lot of similar modules that are across all three of the big three, right? So across Ford, GM, and of course Chrysler, and the rest of the automotive companies, there's a lot of overlap. Of course, each module has slightly different functionalities, but kind of learning about how each part works, it translated a lot when I started in infotainment at GM. Yeah.
So what opportunities are there with someone with your degree? So if someone wanted to get experience in maybe electrical engineering or computer engineering, what should they kind of start doing now?
If they are specifically looking for computer engineering, electrical engineering, and kind of engineering in general, definitely pay attention in your math classes. It'll come in handy for college, but don't worry about it too much because you don't really need a lot of math and calculus in your professional degree unless you're working on something extremely technical. And if that's like something that you definitely like to do. So yeah, pay attention in your math and physics classes. They'll definitely help. Robotics, again, it's a really, really great opportunity. You'll have experience and a background that not a lot of other people who are around you in high school, college, and your professional degree, they won't really have that. And starting early with your knowledge about it is a really, really good chance. And then in college, try to find an internship and job experience as early as possible. Don't let people really tell you that you need to wait until you're a junior or a senior. We all have it in us. A lot of people start quite early, and it's a really, really big benefit the more job experience you have and the more work experience, not just to apply to full-time positions and get it, but for your own background and for your own knowledge.
So when you go about doing your daily work, how much of what you use, like skills and things, did you know before you applied to a job versus while on the job learning?
I would say a very, very small amount of what I knew in the past has translated over to what I'm doing currently. What the priority kind of is when you start a full-time position is that you have a very baseline technical knowledge. So it's really not about the nitty-gritty, super detailed, math equations, all of that stuff. It's really, your baseline knowledge of engineering in general, of, if you're an electrical engineer, of electrical engineering in general. And then past that, how well can you work with people? How well can you learn? How well can you take the knowledge that you do have and expand upon it and grow and be able to get the job done?
So like you mentioned, how you were kind of suggested by the person who interviewed you, and then you were able to get this other job. How did you go about your job interviews, and how did you prepare for them, and also maybe salary negotiation?
Yeah, so my strategy kind of applying for internships and applying for full-time jobs is to find anything that remotely fit my skill set, even a little bit, even if there was one line of their description in common with something that I had in my background, I would just apply for it if it seemed even a little bit interesting. After that, I would kind of wait and see, sometimes there's a lot of stuff that goes into like the whole application process. And, sometimes there's not even someone looking at it. Sometimes there is. So I didn't take anything that I applied to too seriously. I just kind of waited for those, some feedback to come in from people. And then I was able to kind of really dig deep, research into the company, see what I liked about the company. And preparing for interviews, you definitely want to have stories about what your experiences are like. It's not just, oh, I know coding languages XYZ. It's, I use this coding language to solve this problem, or I was working on this project and I used this coding language for it. And this is what I learned from it. Interviewers, they want to hear stories about your experiences, not just, oh, this is everything that I can do. This is how I actually did it. You always want to stay upbeat and positive throughout your interview. You really want to kind of, if you can, try to connect with the interviewer themselves. Make sure you have a few questions prepared at the end of the interview about maybe the interviewer themselves or the company, and anything that you might be curious about. And then also for salary negotiations, I would say never try to name a number first. If someone is asking you about, if maybe an HR person or someone on a phone interview is asking you for a number before you've even had your interview, kind of really early in the process, that's when I would definitely deflect the question, kind of work around it, say, something that's reasonable for the industry standards and the location, and then kind of keep moving from there. When salary negotiations come up towards the end of your process, you want to always let the interviewer say the number first, the HR person, and then kind of assess, is this something that is similar to what other engineers in this location or other people with applying for a similar position would be getting? Is it a little lower? Is it higher? And then from there, for the most part, in most instances, you can ask for more within reason. So that's when you would say something like, that sounds good. How about X? You would say, how about this number? And then stop talking, let them think about it. Sometimes people try to get a little overexcited and try to fill the silence. So just name a number. Of course, be positive and upbeat about it. Name a number and see what they say. They might say, yeah, sure. Or they might say, yeah, we'll meet you in the middle. And they might say, sorry, this is the highest offer that we can do, but at least you tried. So definitely don't sell yourself short. Educate yourself on what, your value is. And for the most part, in many instances, you should ask for more.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about knowing programming language X, Y, Z, a question in the chat was, what programming language do you use mostly at your work at GM?
So currently we use a few programming languages, and mostly our bench engineers use those, but they're mostly a little bit of MATLAB, a little bit of C, and a little bit of we use this little programming thing called an Eagle, and it it kind of serves as a chip between our computer and the module itself. So it's honestly, if you have a good understanding of a few programming languages, you will kind of be able to pick up on what the other areas are working on. It's hard to know every single one that's used in every single scenario, but especially unless you're working specifically on the module itself, you're a bench engineer, you're testing it, that's when you definitely want to have a little bit of background knowledge and brush up on your skills. But for the most part, that's kind of what I use at GM. And within school, we learned a little bit of C++, Java, MATLAB, a few others for sure that we just use throughout our classes. But for the most part, our programming was kind of used as a tool to supplement our electrical engineering problems and situations and stuff. So all of those languages that we used in a purely electrical sense were to help us solve these, really big problems, electrical specific problems.
So was Python taught at college?
So specifically in my program, Python was not taught, but specific classes did use it. And also, if you would wanted to take a computer science minor, that would really open up a lot of opportunities to learn a lot of different languages. And it kind of just depended. So in some of my really upper level, high level engineering classes, we would kind of have a choice. You could use MathCAD, MATLAB, any of these things that can help you solve the problems that we were working on. because sometimes it was just kind of impossible to do by hand, or it would take a long time at least.
I also had a couple more questions actually. So I've heard that when employers receive a lot of resumes, they use like a filter system where they only pick out certain resumes with certain skills on it. So what kind of skills should you put on your resume that will make your resume stand out and won't make you, I guess, not a candidate anymore for the employer?
Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. It's called ATS, or Applicant Tracking System. And I would say, of course, I'm not super privy to what the application process is on the other side, but for the most part, I'm sure that most companies use it, but it's not necessarily a cutoff like, oh, if you have like less than this GPA, you're not going to be allowed to, continue in the process. And sometimes, for the most part, it's not necessarily like specific skills that you need to kind of make it through that process. It For the most part, it just tries to capture what's on your resume and fill it out for the HR person. So your contact information, where you went to school, stuff like that. So it's kind of easy for the hiring manager to see. And the hiring manager is the manager that will be your manager if you were to get the position. And then the HR person is usually the first person that it goes through. But for skills, I would say that as you're going through college, and high school, you kind of don't really remember when you look back all of the things that you've done, all of the little, maybe you spent 5 minutes with someone learning a little bit about what they're doing using a specific software coding language. Maybe you spent like a day or two or a week working on a project. Like, you don't remember those little things. So definitely keep a log of it. Any skills that you think could possibly be on your resume, keep track of it. And depending on the job that you're applying for, see the areas that you have overlap in. Maybe you didn't work with C++, but you worked with C. Put that down. Some of these things are similar. Put down kind of anything that you can think of that is relevant onto your resume. And in terms of standing out, it's important to kind of follow the rules only to a certain extent. The place where you want to stand out is during your interview. You want to be, you want to be really engaging. You want to show that you're eager about the position. And in that sense, that's where you want to stand out. For your resume itself, you want to make sure that, you're kind of using the proper spacing, of course, the proper type font, just kind of work with the rules on that one. But a few pieces of resume advice I would give is frame every single bullet point that you have under your job experiences as accomplishments. Don't say don't say I worked on this project. Say I worked on this project, which led to this, which eased, workload by 50%, throw in some numbers, frame everything as an accomplishment. And that's what will make you stand out as a candidate.
So in your career, what goals do you have for the future?
Yeah, good question. Definitely one of my main goals right now, kind of fresh out of college, I graduated last year, is to kind of learn as much as I can. I think I have a good opportunity being in the track program. It's something that I haven't seen a lot of corporations put together. I haven't seen a lot of these graduate programs right out of college. And it's a good experience for me because I can kind of learn as much as I can without committing fully to one position. I can take what I'm learning from this rotation, and when I'm choosing my permanent position, I can say, hey, this was something that I really, really liked, or this is something that I enjoyed, but it's not something that I want to continue with, I think learning is definitely my first goal. And then my second goal, probably I will study and kind of apply for grad school at some point, whether that be more business related or engineering related. I'm not sure yet, but definitely grad school, master's, it does give you that extra push a little bit later in your career. So that's something a little bit farther on the horizon.
So, specifically about grad school and getting a master's, I've heard that after you get your first job, companies tend to sponsor you on getting a part-time, going to school part-time, and then getting a master's. So, have you thought about that? What are the pros and cons of that exactly?
Yeah, so that's the great thing about engineering and most STEM fields. They will give you some sort of tuition reimbursement. Most companies will. Denso had tuition reimbursement for their employees, and GM does as well. It's a really, really, really good option to kind of consider in the future for sure.
So you talked a little bit about the track program. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so it stands for Technical Rotation and Career Knowledge. They really tried to make that acronym fit in there. But yeah, so track program. And basically they hire a bunch of engineers, and every 6 months we all rotate into another position. So kind of how it works is part of it is our own preferences. Like I will say, okay, I'm interested in these 5 positions or these areas. And then part of it is business needs. So what does GM need from us as engineers? And then we'll be placed accordingly. And then it's 2 years long, every 6 months. So that's 4 rotations total. And then after 2 years, we're placed into that full-time, not full-time, more permanent position where we're expected to be there for a little bit of a longer stint. So that's how that works. And it's all within our global product development team. So it really ranges from a huge array of things that we can be doing. So I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I'm starting my next rotation in 2 weeks. And that's going to be in body electronics with passive safety. Do I explain what that is? Because I didn't know at first. So
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah. So body electronics, that's it encompasses a lot of electronic modules within the car. And then passive safety, what that kind of is an example of it would be you're driving on the road and you're getting too close to the car in front of you and your car gives you an alert. That's passive safety. Active safety, an example of that would be you're getting too close to the car in front of you and your car automatically stops. That's an active measure of safety. So I'm kind of working on anything in the car that has to do with that passive safety aspect specifically.
So in the track program, do you know roughly how many different areas of jobs there are, or just the rough amount?
Yeah, so there are about 600 different jobs that you can kind of search through and see what you're interested in. Like I said, it's a very, very expansive list. It's really, really vast. And it really touches into a lot of different areas within GM too.
So is this track program something that you got in through individually, or was it through Wayne specifically?
This was individual. So the career fair is a really great place to learn about different companies and kind of get the opportunity to meet people. But for the most part, all of my positions have kind of been through my own, I go straight to the website, I apply through their system, and then that's kind of how I get that process started. So this wasn't through Wayne State. I applied during when one of those positions were open and kind of started the process like that.
So in the future, do you have any plans on exploring or interested in any other field of engineering, like space or something else other than automotive?
Yeah, so I would say automotive is definitely a fickle industry. You kind of have to keep your eye on the pulse and see how things are heading, how's your company doing, how things are looking. But I definitely don't have all my eggs in one basket. I would say I really love automotive right now. And I think GM is really a great place for young engineers. It's kind of turning into a mini tech giant, I would say. in a smaller sense. At least, upper management is pushing in that direction, which I think is great. So yeah, it's definitely a great place for me to be right now. But in the future, I'm definitely open to a career switch or maybe a field change, but not for the moment. Maybe a little bit later.
Yeah, so I think we have time for one last question. And it's just, do you have any advice or any other information that you'd like to share with our audience that we haven't covered already?
Yeah, so I would say like my last piece of advice is to be confident. There's a space at the table for every single person, no matter what you look like, no matter how little or how much experience that you have. Don't sell yourself short. Don't doubt yourself. Everybody around you, has a different experience to bring to the table, and so do you. So, definitely like put yourself out there. Don't shy away from something that might be a little challenging or a conversation that you think you might not be a part of. Push yourself into those situations, meet new people, get out of your comfort zone, and be confident. Everybody has it in them for sure. And it's a really fun place to be. STEM, engineering, all of it. So, yeah.
All right, well, we thank you so much for all your help and time today. And we all thank you guys for joining us. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And make sure to come back in 2 weeks on July 15th for our next show with Allison Neisler. And that's it, guys. Have a good week, everyone.